All right, so we got a new fragrance here from French Avenue. This is the newest fragrance that's within their Pinnace line, and this is Pinnace Oryn. All right, so pretty weird name. I don't really know what Oryn means, but that's what this one is. And just like the other, bottles within that Pinnace line, you're gonna get the name Pinnace here on the front, French Avenue up top. And then you get the name of the fragrance here on both sides. So Pinnace Oryn. You got the authenticity sticker back here. French Avenue, the ingredients, the production date, which this particular bottle, this was just produced in December of 2024. And then just like all of the other Pinnace bottles, you just basically kind of pull this tab and then the bottle kind of slides out like this. And the bottle looks like a yacht or a boat or something like that. All right, so this one is just basically like an all gold sort of color scheme. Obviously you have Pinnace White, which is the Pacific Chill one. That one was like an all white bottle. You've got the Pinnace Noir, which was the Boss Bottled Intense EDP or EDP Intense, interpretation. That one was like a all black bottle. So, you're getting same kind of presentation here, French Avenue written here on the top of the cap. And then you got like a French Avenue sticker down there at the bottom. And then the name of the fragrance here on just the one side. My biggest gripe when it comes to these, Pinnace fragrances is just the way that these bottles feel in the hand. They're just very kind of clunky and weird feeling. And I really don't enjoy using this bottle. Cause it's like you kind of have to use like one of your off fingers to kind of spray it. Normally with any other fragrance, at least for me anyway, I normally just kind of use my index finger to spray the bottle. Whereas with this one, I guess I could do that, but it feels very weird to kind of use it that way. So that's my only gripe about these particular bottles. But as far as the sprayer goes on this one, sprayer is, pretty decent, shoots out a decent amount of juice. And in terms of the notes between, Pinnace, Oryn, as well as Afternoon Swim, there is like a slight difference. So with this one, you do kind of get like a top, mid, and base note breakdown. So for the top notes for Pinnace Oryn, you're gonna get mandarin, you're gonna get orange, and then bergamot in the top notes. And then in the mid, you get ginger, and then in the base, you get ambergris. Whereas with Afternoon Swim, you're just getting mandarin orange, Sicilian orange, bergamot, ambergris, and ginger. So no sort of top, mid, or base note breakdown for that. Now, in terms of the smell is actually, from what I can remember anyway, extremely close. Now, as far as the comparison for this one, I actually ran out of my sample of Afternoon Swim. So I wasn't able to do like a, complete side-by-side, comparison between the two fragrances. But I'm pretty familiar with that fragrance. I've had a 30 ml sample of that fragrance, as well as, just smaller sort of samples that I've been doing reviews with. And definitely this Pinnace Oryn seems to be the closest, sort of Middle Eastern alternative that I've smelled, or I guess you could say, less than sort of, $50 to $60 alternative that I've smelled to Afternoon Swim. This is absolutely going to be, in my opinion, closer than the Luciano Sunset Swim. And even when you smell this side by side to Sunset Swim, you definitely can tell that, there is like a definite quality difference between this and, the Sunset Swim. At the time this came out, this was definitely, the closest one that I had smelled to Afternoon Swim. and this is still a solid choice. To me, it comes off as definitely a little bit sweeter in the, you know, the opening spray. But what I'm noticing, especially with, you know, smelling it side by side to the Pinnace Oryn, is the Pinnace Oryn for sure has a much higher level of richness, you know, to the smell than what the Luciano does. And I mean, the complexity is definitely, it's noticeable between this and the Luciano. To me, when I smell the Pinnace Oryn, this smells like a kind of three-dimensional fragrance. So it does have layers to it. It does smell really high quality. It reminds me exactly of what, you know, Afternoon Swim smells like. Whereas with this one, with the Luciano Sunset Swim, to me, this is kind of more so like a, I don't know, more of a two-dimensional sort of fragrance. So it's kind of like it's missing a layer almost. And again, it does also come off as a little bit sweeter, in my opinion, you know, than what the original Afternoon Swim does, which is something that I noticed right away, even, you know, back when I initially did my comparison video on this to Afternoon Swim. You know, I mentioned in that video that this was definitely the sweeter fragrance, you know, just from the opening spray, but this was definitely the better fragrance over something like what was it, Soak Sun Exclusive by Grandeur Elite, I believe is what it was. This was definitely the better fragrance over that one, but this definitely, I would say, is, you know, much better than even what the Luciano Sunset Swim is. So, I mean, when you first spray this one, you get kind of like that mixture of, you know, again, those oranges and the bergamot. And it's like a mixture of like the zest of those fruits as well as the actual juices of the fruits as well. So it's a very kind of refreshing, uplifting, really bright, you know, fruity, fresh, you know, type of fragrance. Now, it also, the original as well as this one, has like this really kind of like musky sort of undertone to it, which this one definitely recreates perfectly. Whereas I feel like that's also something that this one is kind of missing as well. This one doesn't come off as sort of musky as what the original fragrance does, and it doesn't come off, you know, as musky as what this does either. So, you know, that's kind of why I say like this one is more of like a three-dimensional fragrance. This one is kind of two-dimensional because there is a slight, you know, sort of element missing. But, you know, again, the Luciano is still a solid fragrance for, you know, especially for the price that it goes for. I believe now that one has come down a little bit in price, down to like closer around $30 or so. Whereas this one, since it just came out and it is a French Avenue fragrance, this is going to be like around that $50 mark. But I do think, like, if you're looking for something that is basically identical to Afternoon Swim, I mean, I think for $50, this is definitely worth it, because, I mean, the alternative would be purchasing a full bottle of Afternoon Swim, and that's going to run you $330 as opposed to $50. And I mean, as far as what I can tell anyway, you know, from the opening, you know, when you get the really sort of sweet, yet at the same time slightly tart kind of, you know, mandarin orange bergamot combination, you get the slightly sort of spicy ginger in this, as well as that sort of musky, you know, kind of ambergris sort of feel. I think all together, man, this fragrance just, you know, is extremely close to Afternoon Swim, and it mimics that fragrance to the point where, you know, again, this reminds me of that fragrance exactly. I don't think that anyone will probably be able to tell the difference between this and Afternoon Swim in the air. Like I said, I'll have to get a sample of the original Afternoon Swim again to really kind of, you know, dig in there and nitpick and see if there are any sort of differences at all in smell between this and Afternoon Swim. Like, you know, maybe this could possibly be 1 or 2% sweeter in certain areas or something like that. But again, as far as what I can tell, this smells exactly like what I remembered Afternoon Swim smelling like. All right. So as far as the performance goes, this is also going to perform just like Afternoon Swim does. So in terms of the projection, you are going to get pretty good projection. It is pretty, diffusive for like the first hour and a half. So at least about an arm's length of projection or so for about the first hour and a half. And then longevity wise, it is going to be very kind of average, to below average, you could say, in terms of the longevity. So I would say really don't expect anything more than about 4 to 5 hours or so of total longevity out of this fragrance. Which again, that's going to be about what you're going to get with the original Afternoon Swim. So you're not going to get like the Alexandria Afternoon Splash sort of, performance out of the fragrance, both in terms of the projection or the longevity. And you're not going to get the type of longevity that, you get out of something like the Paris Corner Quattro either. This is definitely more of a twist on the scent profile. It is definitely one that I think I do still slightly kind of prefer over the original Afternoon Swim sort of scent profile. I think like if I were to kind of describe the differences between Quattro and then like the original scent profile, to me, I would say the original scent profile, so Afternoon Swim or something like Pinnace Oryn, is going to be more kind of like, orange and bergamot sort of juice. Whereas this is going to be more kind of like an orange Fanta, pretty much like an orange sort of pop or soda. That's the best way for me to really kind of describe it. So, this one is going to be a little bit more sort of sweeter, and, a little bit more thicker. Whereas this is going to smell a little bit more kind of natural smelling, and, more kind of aromatic and fragrant, you could say. So, that is the best way for me to kind of describe the differences between those two fragrances. And like I said, as far as the performance goes on Pinnace Oryn, it is definitely going to be, definitely a lot closer to what the original Afternoon Swim performance is like. Now, if I'm going to give this fragrance a overall closeness rating, I mean, at least so far for me, this is easily like a 97, 98% out of 100. Like I said, I don't really pick up on any sort of differences from what I remember Afternoon Swim smelling like. I really don't pick up on too many differences. Like I said, even with this fragrance, I remember picking up on differences right away with this one. I could tell that this one at the time was definitely the closest that I had smelled to Afternoon Swim, but it was obviously sweeter in the opening. I don't really get anything like that from the Pinnace Oryn. All right. Now, as far as the overall rating on this, easily 9.5 out of 10. This is, like I said, the closest that I think that I've smelled to Afternoon Swim from more of sort of like the cheaper, Middle Eastern houses or houses like Luciano. I think so far this is going to be your best choice, the Pinnace Oryn. Like I said, this one for 100 ml is going to run you about $50. I think that's absolutely worth it, especially if, like, let's say for instance, if this is like 97, 98% close and there is just this, really, really minuscule slight difference, between this and Afternoon Swim. Does a 2% difference justify paying $330 over 50? At least for me, it doesn't, So, I mean, that would be something that would be up to you. But I think for a fragrance that costs, a fraction of what the Louis Vuitton does and is almost 100%, close in terms of, how close it comes to that fragrance, this is obviously the no-brainer, at least for me, as far as choices go. So that's my take on Pinnace Oryn. Definitely let me know in the comments what you all think about Pinnace Oryn, especially if you all have actually picked this one up And if you all have smelled this one side by side with the original Afternoon Swim, definitely let me know, you know, if you agree with my assessment of how close this comes to the original fragrance. Also, I have links in the description to where you can actually purchase this fragrance. And if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see you on the next video.